Welcome to the Relationship Diversity Podcast, where we celebrate, question, and explore all aspects of relationship structure diversity, from soloamory to monogamy to polyamory and everything in between, because every relationship is as unique as you are. We'll bust through societal programming to break open and dissect everything we thought we knew about relationships, to ask the challenging but transformational questions: who am I, and what do I really want in my relationships? I'm your guide, Carrie Jaroslaw, best-selling author, speaker, intuitive, and coach. Join me as we reimagine all that our most intimate relationships can become. I've always been completely overwhelmed in department stores. I walk inside one and instantly my vision becomes fuzzy and my attention gets scattered. There's just too much to look at and take in. I prefer little boutique stores where there are less options and I can work my way around the store in a more focused fashion. I also do better with having some kind of direction with where to start and move through the store so that I can take in all that I'm drawn to. So with that in mind, I'm taking this episode to give you a walk through the Relationship Diversity Podcast library of content from 2023. I did this in episode 28, titled Year-End Review, a great first episode to introduce you to this podcast, where I led you through a synopsis of the first 27 episodes. That way, you could hear a synopsis of each episode and go right to the one that piqued your interest. And I got such amazing feedback from listeners about how helpful this was. So here we are at the mid-year mark with another 23 episodes added since January of this year. And I thought it was time to do a mid-year review. Can you believe it's been 6 months and we're in the middle of 2023? It's kind of mind-blowing. But when I look back to all the conversations I've had, all the things that I've talked about, in the past 6 months, I've continued the conversation series where I talk with incredibly wise people who are helping to create an inclusive space to have deeper conversations about relationship diversity and the many aspects of our lives that it encompasses. I've had discussions about non-monogamy, diverse relationships, sex, sensuality, non-categorical relationships, conscious communication, jealousy, compersion, and so much more. I love these conversations because many times I'm learning right alongside with you. I've incorporated a lot of their teachings into my own relationships. And when I do, I feel that my relationships expand into a better version of what they were before I had heard what that person had said. So if you are new to this podcast, have missed some episodes, or want to go back and listen again, this mid-year review will hopefully help you give some focus and direction to what you're needing and wanting in this moment. Okay, here we go. Episode 29. This was the first episode of 2023. Conversations with Naomi Yano about non-categorical relationships. In this episode, I talk with psychotherapist and emotionally focused therapist Naomi Yano all about relationships that don't fit neatly into any box or category. Have you ever heard of platonic life partners or platonic co-parenting? She explains what this is and introduces other types of intimate relationships that defy categorization. She also teaches about EFT, and I'm not talking about emotional freedom technique, otherwise known as tapping, but her EFT is emotionally focused therapy, a form of therapy that helps people learn how to regulate their emotions. And she talks about how this type of therapy, it's international and it's bringing tremendous healing to people all over the world. So episode 30 is titled, You Can't Expect Your Partner to Be a Mind Reader. In this solo episode, I talk about the dysfunctional belief that your partner should just know what you want and what you need without having to say anything. We're never taught how to have direct, open-hearted, and compassionate communication with other people. We're left on our own to figure it out, and many times unconsciously adopt what was modeled for us as a young child. So how do we move from dysfunctional communication to supportive, connective communication? I'll give you 5 steps in this episode to begin the process. Episode 31, Conversations with Jada Fire Kalika of The Wolf about sensuality. In this episode, I talk with my really good friend Jada all about sensuality, which she defines as innocence and divine feminine energy. She talks about her journey from woundedness to reclamation of her innate sensual self and discusses ways to start your own journey of uncovering this within yourself. Episode 32. I called Feeling Like an Outsider, How to Find Community You Resonate With. So if you've ever felt like an outsider and are craving a community where you can just be yourself, then this is the episode for you. I'll talk about how to get started finding your tribe and where to look for people who you resonate with. There's nothing like being amongst a group of people who are accepting and non-judgmental, especially when you want to explore some ideas like relationship diversity. This episode will give you practical, tangible ways to start your exploration. Which leads us to episode 33, Conversations with Dr. Ali Griffith about connecting through soul-nourishing communication. In this episode, I talk with Dr. Ali Griffith, a TEDx speaker and best-selling author. Her 25-year career as a speech pathologist and audiologist has given her such insight on how to cultivate soul-nourishing connections through clear, inviting communication. And she gives great tips to thoughtfully connect through verbal and nonverbal communication. Episode 34, What Determines if a Relationship is a Success? In this solo episode, I look at societal views about what determines whether a relationship is successful or not. We've been taught that length of time determines if a relationship is successful, regardless of the quality of the relationship. I talk about a new way of looking at this and redefine what success in relationship can look like. I love this topic because this reframe has been really helpful in my own relationships and has helped me feel more successful regardless of the actual outcome of the relationship. So if you're feeling disheartened by your relationships and how they've turned out or how they haven't turned out, go check this one out. Okay, episode 35, Conversations with Laura Zam about sexuality and the taboo. In this episode, I talk with my good friend Laura Zam, a sexuality educator, about sexuality and the taboo. There's so much wounding around our sexuality, which contributes to us repressing this primal, innate part of ourselves. We go deep into taboo topics, and she gives us 3 misconceptions about sex that compound shame. Stay curious for this one. Episode 36. The title is Recalling Your Happy Memories to Shift Your Current Experience. In this solo episode, I explore how to rewire your brain and subconscious to embrace positive memories from your childhood. We're wired to focus on the negative, and this can keep us continually creating experiences that are unfulfilling and dysfunctional. Societal programming supports this with 24/7 news channels and drama-filled social media. So how do we begin to change our experience in the world by shifting our thoughts from constant negativity to at least finding a balance between negative and positive thoughts? I explore this and give you simple tips to start a daily positivity practice. I don't advocate false positivity. I believe in really looking at what's going on under the surface, but at the same time, we can spiral out of control in our negativity, which keeps us stuck in old patterns and old stories. This is part of our courageous healing work. Okay, episode 37, Conversations with Karyn Whitmeyer about non-monogamy. In this episode, I talk with Karyn Whitmeyer, a mental health and sex therapist out of Washington State, whose work focuses on non-monogamous and queer folks and their relationships. She brings almost a decade of experience into our discussion and offers really valuable insight for anyone exploring this relationship structure. Episode 38, What societal beliefs do you have about intimate relationships? In this solo episode, I explore many societal beliefs that we have that may be keeping us from experiencing a different relationship that is the truest expression of who we are. You don't know what you don't know. I list many beliefs in this episode that I've had and my clients have identified within themselves. This isn't a complete list by any means. This is because we're all unique individuals with unique paths that form our unique programming. But it's a great place to start your exploration. Episode 39 was Conversations with Kim Gross about people pleasing. In this conversation, I talk with my friend Kim Gross all about people pleasing and perfectionist characteristics that can keep you from living your most authentic and fulfilling life. Who out there is a people pleaser? I'm raising my hand right over here. Kim is the founder and creator of this 5-step power pathway, and it helps people pleasers and perfectionists on a journey of self-healing so that they can have more meaningful connections and have the courage to create the life that they desire. And she introduces this process in our conversation, and I will tell you, as a people pleaser, it has really, really helped me. Which leads us to episode 40, why emotional security is so important for our intimate relationships. In this solo episode, I explore emotional security and why it's so important for cultivating intimacy in your relationships. So I'll look at what emotional security is, why emotional security is so important in intimate relationships, why someone may feel emotionally unsafe, how to cultivate emotional security within yourself, and tips to build emotional security with your partner or partners. I also look at how emotional security shows up in the context of relationship diversity. So with dedication, desire, and perseverance, emotional security can be rediscovered, relearned, and reclaimed. Listening to this episode can be your first step in doing just that. Episode 41, Conversations with Annie Henderson about coming out. In this episode, I talk with my friend Annie Henderson, a professional life coach and coming out coach. She shares her personal journey about coming out later in life and gives some amazing tips on how to approach your own journey of bringing your authentic self out into the world. It doesn't matter what aspect of your life you may be wanting to come out from, whether gender, sexual, or relationship, or something else. Annie's tips will really help you in your coming out journey. Episode 42, Conversations with Dr. Elisabeth Sheff about the evolution of diverse relationships and the bonding project. In this episode, I talk with Dr. Eli Sheff, a leading researcher and academic expert in the area of polyamorous families and diverse relationships. We talk about the evolution of relationship diversity from her over 25-year career and her work with the Bonding Project. I'm personally really excited about this project because it is helping people to learn more about themselves, specifically how they bond to other people, what their desires are. It's very aligned with relationship diversity and this podcast. And so stay tuned to learn more about it. And also, if you want to do your own exploration about how you bond to other people, go over and take the test on their website, bondingproject.com. Episode 43. Conversations with Amanda Rue about healing through BDSM and kink. Another insightful conversation, this time with Amanda Rue, a modern mystic and pleasure coach, where we talk about how BDSM and kink can be a way for some people to heal their sexual wounding. This conversation was so enlightening and really busts through judgments about how society views kink and sexual pleasure. I learned so much that really opened my mind to new ways of looking at this. Okay, episode 44 is My Most Transformative Healing Came in the Most Uncommon Way. In this solo episode, I come out as my true intuitive self. Are you seeing the world through the lens of your woundedness? then this episode is for you. In it, I'll talk about energetic subconscious reprogramming and tips to start your own practice. I'll also talk about why this is important when exploring diverse relationship structures and embracing your unique self. Because, as I always say, every relationship is as unique as you are. Episode 45, Conversations with Laura Nichols about living your most authentic life. Do you feel like you put on masks when you interact with others? Do you feel like you can really be yourself? And do you know what that even is? Well, in this episode, I talk with Laura Nichols about her own journey of coming out as a later in life lesbian and how she embraced and moved into living her most authentic, aligned life. She also gives amazing tips on how to start your own journey of awareness and acceptance of your true self. Episode 46 is called Unpacking Your Familial Programming About Intimate Relationships. How does your past influence your present? In this solo episode, I talk about how we learn so much about relationships through our childhood experience. What we see, what we hear, and what we observe creates our subconscious beliefs around relationships. This can be great if we're in alignment with that experience, but for many, there are these deep wounds that keep us from having authentic, fulfilling, unique relationships that reflect our unique selves. So, by doing our own inquiry and healing, we have the possibility to completely change the narrative of our intimate relationships. This episode will help you start or continue your unlearning of the old and learning the new. Episode 47 was Conversations with Dr. Joli Hamilton about creative monogamy. In this episode with Dr. Joli Hamilton, research psychologist, ASEX certified sex educator, and relationship coach, we talk about creative monogamy, what it is, and how to explore it in a conscious and intentional way. We talk about how embracing the process of this exploration can bring you immense freedom to imagine the limitless potential of your most fulfilling relationship experiences. This is an incredible episode for those who want to design their unique relationship and do it their way. Episode 48 is called Shifting Your Relationship Structure, How Timing Can Influence Your Decision. In this solo episode, I tell you the story of my life through sharing the different chapters of my relationship story. I talk about how my needs and desires have changed over time and how my self-evolution has helped me determine what relationship structure was the best expression for the chapter of life I was in. I've practiced soloamory, monogamy, open relationship, and polyamory, and each structure has reflected my evolving intention and vision. Honoring this natural process of evolution and learning to accept and love oneself is all part of choosing consciousness in relationships. Okay, episode 49, Conversations with Rachel Wright about redefining sex and sexuality. In episode 49, I talk with psychotherapist Rachel Wright about reframing and redefining sex and sexuality. I had so many big aha moments during this episode. I really feel that her definition of sex, in and of itself, has the potential to bring so much healing to our collective sexual wounding. It really did for me. If you feel you've had sexual wounding or just want to experience more pleasure in your life, this is the episode for you. And episode 50, Discovering the Power of Conscious Relating. In this solo episode, I'll introduce you to the concept of conscious relationship, what it is, and how it's different from unconscious relationships. Let's be practical though. How does one even shift their relationships from unconscious to conscious? So in this episode, I'll give you 7 steps to start the process. Conscious relationships are not for the faint at heart. They're for those wanting to experiencing fulfilling, joyful, soul-nourishing relationships while feeling empowered. If you've heard about conscious relationships but don't really know what that means or how to bring consciousness to your own life, start by listening to this episode. And lastly, episode 51, Embracing Compersion, the Transformative Power of Joy in Non-Monogamous Relationships. In this fascinating conversation, I talk with Dr. Marie Thouin all about the concept of compersion. This concept is used a lot in the non-monogamous communities, but the idea of compersion, which is experiencing positive thoughts and feelings for another person's happiness, applies to any kind of relationship. And Dr. Marie Thouin has done a multitude of research about compersion and drops so much wisdom in this episode. We go deeper into what compersion is, its history, and the 6 categories of factors that can promote or hinder the experience of compersion within your relationships. Which leads us to this episode, the mid-year review. So I really hope that this has helped you navigate through this podcast, giving you some direction about where to start. My intention with this podcast is education and conversations around the idea of relationship diversity, but all for the reason to help people have more fulfilling, joyful relationships. I have seen how healing it can be to people when they break free of all the constraints, whether wounding, societal, familial, or cultural programming, or anything else that prohibits them from experiencing the fullness of what their relationship can be. And I love this idea of moving towards the freedom of creating their own unique relationship based on their unique self and the uniqueness of the other people involved. I hope that this podcast and the conversations that I have within it encourage you to dream and vision the most delicious, soul-nourishing relationships possible, and then find the community and resources to help you through the process of creating it and bringing it into your life. Curiosity and desire are so important during this unfolding, which is why I always end the podcast with the sentiment, stay curious. Thanks so much for listening to the Relationship Diversity Podcast. Want to learn more about relationship diversity? I've got a free guide I'd love to send you. Go to www.relationshipdiversitypodcast.com to get yours sent right to you. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe to the podcast. You being here and participating in the conversation about relationship diversity is what helps us create a space of inclusivity and acceptance together. The more comfortable and normal it is to acknowledge the vast and varied relating we all do, the faster we'll shift to a paradigm of conscious, intentional, and diverse relationships. New episodes are released every Thursday. Stay connected with me through my website, carriejaroslow.com, Instagram, or TikTok. Stay curious. Every relationship is as unique as you are. Are you feeling stuck or unfulfilled in your intimate relationship? Do all your relationships end in the same way? Do you feel like you've lost the spark in your current relationship? Can you never even find one person who you want to explore a relationship with? If you answered yes to any of those questions, are sick and tired of feeling like a failure in your relationships, and desperately desire a different experience, then my 8-week deep reprogramming intensive may be the answer for you. In this program, I work individually with you for 8 transformative weeks. We'll identify the subconscious programming that's keeping you stuck and shift it to a new affirming belief systems. We go deep, we get real, we get results. This is healing unlike anything you've ever experienced before. Here's what people are saying. Jordan from North Carolina said, more has shifted in 8 weeks of working with Carrie than 10 years of psychotherapy. Jane from Sanford, North Carolina said, it's honestly changed my life. And Cassie from Santa Barbara, California said, Carrie's laser precision in helping me diagnose where the stuck energy was helped me make positive movement in our first session alone. Absolutely transformational. I love being a guide and witness to these courageous people who claim that they were done with their past experiences and ready for something different. I'm opening a limited number of spots for 2023 and would love to help you permanently transform your relationship experience. To set up a free 30-minute clarity call where I'll help you uncover your number one block to fulfilling relationships, connect with me through the link in the show notes. You are worthy of experiencing deep fulfillment and love in your relationships. This intensive work will help you get there.